Hi everyone, I'm Carl Bierock. Welcome back to the Jaguar Football Podcast, and it is week one here in the Seckman Valley. With us today is Coach Nicholas Bear, head coach of Seckman Football. Coach Bear, I imagine the hallways and just the atmosphere around the school probably hit a little bit harder this week as we get ready to take the field on Friday.
Yeah, you could start to kind of really feel the buzz, the first week of school kind of, wearing off. And then as we get closer to Thursday, Friday, that excitement accompanied with this wonderful weather should lead to a fun Friday night.
We'll certainly talk about it on the podcast, but first we're going to kind of go backwards a little bit to the weekend. Big event on Saturday morning. You had the Dad's Donuts and Decal, great tradition. We'll talk about what that means here in a moment, and also the mom's practice. So just another great opportunity for the Seckman community to get together and have those bonding moments with the players. And just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how this all started and the goals of having something like this.
Yeah, that this past Saturday, that day's kind of really turned into a full day, right? A fun day though, for Seckman football. The season starts, this week. We've talked about it a number of times. Once the season starts, it's football and it just flies by. And so we really like to take, especially the blue and gold game and the picnic, our dads, our donuts, our moms practice, really just take some moments away from the game to just kind of settle down and try to enjoy it. So, it was great to see, the amount of dads and fatherly figures we had out there in the morning for some of our donuts and danishes. And then followed by probably our most well-attended moms practice, that we ever have. And, obviously the moms practice, it's about getting the moms out there and just kind of learning a little bit about what they do, but it's really communicating to them, thank you for allowing us to kind of be responsible for your kids and the responsibility of their safety playing a physical sport is something that I don't take very lightly. It's very serious to me, and hopefully we were able to convey that to the moms and the parents that when they do send their kids to practice, there are 14 football coaches who are there and care for their players and want to nurture them and see them succeed. So hopefully that's kind of a feeling they got from being around us a little bit on Saturday, as well as kind of throwing that team pictures in there, team picture day. We used to do it during the week and, it's like, honestly, it's a coach's nightmare. But, throwing it on that Saturday, kind of really increases our attendance. Everybody's there. Parents kind of get to experience the madness that is team photos. And we got it done. I really feel like this past Saturday was about as well-oiled a machine as we've had with our team photos. So really excited, that we have this day, that we've established this day, and we can continue to do it in the future for sure. I even then, after everybody left, I ate a quick lunch, and then we followed it with our junior Jaguar Jamboree with Fox High School, as well as the junior Jaguar team photos. So, we had Seckman football going from about 6:30 in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, all the way to about 5 p.m. at night. So it was just a fun day overall for Seckman football.
Yeah, it's such a neat event. I've been through four of them. And so just, having that opportunity to have that one-on-one time with your player, putting on the decal and you get better, I promise, as you
yeah,
more.
You can't mess it up, but some certainly do look better than others.
Yeah, it's a learning curve, right? So,
Right.
by the time senior year rolls around, you're a pro at it and you could help the person, sitting next to you. But it's just a
Mm-hmm.
great way to, be in that community. Everyone's hanging out. And then I imagine for you and your staff to organize pictures for 180 or so players, it's a tall task, and it seemed to pull it off really well.
Yeah, I'll tell you what saved my life this year, and I learned something new every year with it. Was that dadgum microphone? Usually, I'm like I have to hoot and holler, and if I want to coach on this side of the field, I gotta holler at him. If I need a player over here, I gotta holler at him. This year, I just had that microphone. Kind of ad libbed a little bit. People got to hear a little commentary, but man, that saved my life this year, and I'm gonna have that next year too for sure. So yeah, and it's kind of like a lot of things, a lot of work. Happens beforehand in the preparation. And then on Saturday, everything just kind of comes together. Everybody knows their job, almost like a Friday night, right? All the preparation that goes into where we're heading, and then when it comes to Friday night, the only thing left to do is to get the daggum thing done, and we're getting closer to that.
We sure are. And speaking of a Friday night, the day before the activities on Saturday, you were there with a bunch of other teams in Festus for a jamboree. So those folks not familiar with the jamboree, what exactly is it, and what do you look for from your players and coaches, coming out of it?
Yeah, it's really that final dress rehearsal, that final tune-up. The closest you can really get to that line before you play a real football game. And we've been fortunate enough to be a part of this Festus Jamboree with some really good coaches and some really like-minded programs in Poplar Bluff, Farmington, Festus, Jackson. We've added Cap City the last couple of years, and it's just a great opportunity to go out and compete. We're still evaluating positions. That goes on throughout the season. And it's really that last opportunity to get that rhythm, right? If you watched us at our Farmington joint scrimmage, if you watched us at the blue and gold game, you probably had some concerns with the offense. And it's kind of one of those things where the offense is that last piece of the puzzle to really get there. And it was good to see the offense find some rhythm, find that physicality, get some confidence, and then we're trying to roll that through the week at practice, and then obviously go out and get it done on Friday night. So, overall Jamboree, really big success. We did have, a senior suffer an injury, and those are things you just hate to see. Especially, at the Jamboree, I had a number of coaches coming up and asking me how our player was doing, and we're still waiting on him to be evaluated, but it just kind of sucks. There's just really no other way to put it. Other than that, very positive evening. And the only thing I can say is the pizzas arrived late and we didn't get our pizzas, but to feed the boys. But I'll have to make up for that at a different time.
And to be fair to the host, Festus, I saw the players running with a stack of box of pizzas like this after the Seckman bus. So they tried, but just not their own
I
time.
was already gone with the trailer. And then once the wheels start turning, and I do feel bad. We'll have to make it up to him at some point.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out there. And you touched upon it too. It's like from the last podcast that there were still evaluations going about who plugs in where, or the best fit, or maybe competing. They're maybe neck and neck. And then this jamboree is an opportunity maybe that they were able to distance themselves. What in particular really stood out? And then maybe some stuff that, we need to go back and look at the tape, because I saw on the X page there were some positives and some things that you wanted to work on.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things like we talked about. We finally found that rhythm, on offense, and really started getting to our physicality, getting to the backside backer. Snaps look much better. That's what you're always looking for. And when you go to a jamboree, there's going to be some negatives. When you look at the defense, especially when you go up against a team like Capital City, they're running triple option. Well, we're not preparing for triple option. We would take an entire week if we were playing them every practice, focusing on our game plan for triple option. We spent 5 minutes on Thursday. Hey, you got dive, you got quarterback, you got pitch. Because, that's not really what our focus is, right? Parkway West doesn't run option out of the veer, so it's not really something we valued to spend time on. So, you're watching us against Cap City, you're like, well, there's a lot of holes there. Well, yeah, but we didn't quite game plan for that, right? You're going to get a truer sense of, where the defense is when we played Farmington, when we played Poplar Bluff. It was good to see us get our angles, our pursuit angles to the football. We did fly over the top a few times, and that's something that we're hammering at practice this week. Linebackers kind of had their eyes in the backfield a few times. A few times D linemen weren't getting their hands on, but there were also times that they did. So now it's just really about finding that consistency this week.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because you have essentially all week, once you're in the season, to scout for your opponent. And then how do you scout for four? Yeah, I lost track of how many different.
Yeah, 3 teams that we played. No, and I had it yesterday with the whole team too. our freshman and JV teams, I'm not going to say they don't have game plans, but they have game plans, but they're just not as in depth as our varsity. So, we got a whole new group of juniors coming up, a group of seniors who may have been a part of that game plan last year, but not as deep as they are now. So we really emphasize, like, week to week, we have a different game plan for each opponent. And there's different things we're adding on the defense, different things we're adding on the offense. Those are things we expect you to know. You have to dive deep into that game plan. Yeah, we have our base defense. Yeah, we have our base offense. But for each opponent, we have wrinkles. We have things that we're trying to do. And it really takes some maturity. And really, for the first time, like I said, some of these juniors are game planning for the first time, as in depth as we are for Parkway West. So you've really got to lock in on the details. We've really talked about our progression through the week too. And, Monday is that install day, right? We get it installed on the board. We go out, we install it on the field. Tuesday at practice today, I'm expecting things to be a little bit slower, but mentally, everything that got installed today, we'll have a mental mistake, one or two, either here or there. A coach may have to climb up a rear end or two to reinforce that. But, Tuesday, we want to be clean. We want to know that Monday wasn't a waste, right? And then when we get out there Wednesday, all right, there are no mistakes. We're flying around. We know the game plan. Everything that's been installed, it's starting to happen second nature. And then Thursday, not really a walkthrough, but that run through, we're expecting perfection. We're expecting high energy, get in and out and know what we're doing. So, and then obviously Friday night, it's second nature. It's committed to memory. And when you're playing with confidence, you play faster. So that's kind of, our progression through the week, and something we talked about yesterday with the team, and hopefully something our younger players can grasp onto for this week one matchup.
I like how you really put that, because you talk about the journey from freshman to JV to varsity, and that's a lot to take in. And so by having those, those milestones, not only for the season to continue to get improvement, but it seems like every practice you build upon what you learned in that foundation. It sounds like that's how you get ready for Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, basically our freshmen have a base defense. They know the offense that the other team's going to run. They get a scout team card, but we don't adjust much to what we do, right? To what the freshmen are doing when they go into their game. The JV, they'll have a wrinkle or two, depending on what their coaches want to put in, but it's not as in-depth. Maybe they add one of the same blitzes that we have. Maybe the offense adds one of the plays, that the varsity is often, but they don't dive all the way into the game plan. And then now it kind of progresses to the varsity where, it's a full game plan every week, and it changes week to week and opponent to opponent, and let the fun begin.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of the fun, Coach, here we go. It's time to talk week one opponent. We have Parkway West coming to the Valley, and we are very, very excited to host that home game. And obviously a lot going on this week, as you were talking about the preparation. But for those folks not familiar with the Parkway West program, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about it and, what you're expecting, come Friday night.
Yeah, they're a very quality program. I know last year was the first time we had played them in a handful of seasons, and we kind of, did kind of one of our signature wins as far as using our identity and going out there and being a physical football team and executing our offense and playing fast defense. And when we look at Parkway West this year, we certainly know that they're improved. They were young last year. Now they're a lot like us. They're dressing about 25 plus to 30 seniors, and the guys that were playing out there last year have experience. So we're expecting a better football team for sure. Their quarterback, he's pretty much the real deal. Last year he was getting comfortable, especially week one. I mean, who's comfortable perfect week one? Now he's a Missouri State committed Division I quarterback. And, from the Jamboree film, if he's sitting back there nice and pretty with no one in his face, he could sling it. So, that's one of the things we got to be able to do. We have to develop a pass rush. We got to make the quarterback uncomfortable. Carr, I think, I was thinking about this a little bit. I don't think we've played a Division I quarterback, in a very long time. The last Division I quarterback we played at Parkway West was Blaine Gabbard. Remember that name?
I would say that's a name well known here in Missouri for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, starter at Mizzou for 4 years, and then he went on and actually ended up playing in the NFL. We actually played him my senior year. That was actually my senior year when he was a junior, and yeah, he was the real deal. Beat us single handedly, but basically, we played a really good game. But so it's kind of fun, really when you're a kid, you get to go out there and you're playing a top quality opponent, and you get to test yourself and your abilities and our football team against a good team, and that's kind of really where we're going to be Friday night.
Well, we certainly look forward to it. Then on the defensive side of the ball, yeah, you mentioned that you like how that's progressing, especially through practice and the jamboree. Anything in particular? I mean, it sounds like
Yeah,
if the guy likes to pass, the defensive backfield will be pretty
yeah,
busy.
if they're running the ball more than 15 times, we'll be very surprised. But we're ready for it, and we do expect them to try to get the ball in the air, try to put the ball up over the top, get the ball out quick into the flats. So like I said, it's just going to be very important for us to execute our coverages and make the quarterback uncomfortable. And it's going to be really up to the D line to really get us a good pass rush and get in his face and hold their lanes. And you know what? He likes to put it down, and he'll run with it. He's a good athlete, so it's going to be very important. The linebackers are staying home when they need to be, and you're going to get a good little show on Friday night. There's no doubt about it.
Well, we certainly look forward to it. And Coach, we appreciate your breaking down what you're expecting, and of course. We always invite our fans to like, follow, subscribe to our social media channels. We have our Facebook page where we put this podcast. We also have a YouTube channel where we put these very same podcasts, but you can watch them, on your larger living room TV. And also our friends over at Livestream STL are kind enough to host this podcast as well. And so, Coach, as we start to get closer and closer to game day, wanted to give you the floor and have you take us out as we approach week one.
Yeah, if I could say anything, let's have fun this season. Come to the games on Friday, come to the games on Mondays, ready to have fun, ready to support Seckman football, ready to support your player and our community. My email this past week, my wife and my mom told me I seemed a little sassy. I must have been in a sassy mood. Normally I hear a lot of different things, and 99 times out of 100 I let them go. I guess this was one of those one times I couldn't. You know, Obviously we want everybody to come to the games, but if you're going to come to the games, why not support what we're doing? I think I mentioned something about if you don't really want to support what we're doing and you can't be positive, take up knitting or something on Friday night. I think I said something like that. Obviously, we want everybody at the game to support us, but what I'm trying to get a point across is I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of my coaches. I'm proud of my players. You're going to see our players, win or lose Friday night. Whatever happens, they're going to go out there and lay it all on the line. Okay, I'm watching. They're giving their full hearts. They're giving their full effort for their team and their teammates. So yeah, that's something that I'll defend to the end as well. And, I can't go out there and play anymore. But all I could do is defend my players and defend my coaches. And, it's just kind of one of those things where, I hope everybody else is ready to come out and defend us, defend our players, and support us. And I know most of and I know our community does that. So I don't want to sound like I'm not appreciated with that. But no, that's just kind of a little bit of clarity to kind of maybe if someone was like, "Ooh, Coach Bear, a little extra sassy today. What was in his coffee this morning?" Just a little clarity. Obviously we appreciate everybody. I don't expect everybody to agree. We've talked about that. Agree with every third down call. Every pass play or not pass play. Every personnel decision. But know that we've been practicing. We've been planning. We've put in a lot of time and those decisions are made with a lot of background information. So, that's just kind of how it goes. And, my mom also told me, she's like, well, your emails kind of feel like you're building us up to lose a football game a little bit, or it kind of feels like, and I'm just like, No, I'm not. I'm just really trying to, and really for the boys too. I'm trying to prepare our football team for adversity. You know, we have definitely lived in a fantasy land where we've won 10 games in a row for 2 years in a row. That's hard to do. We're going to try to do it. We certainly intend to do it, but it's hard to do. But what I do know for certain, our football team, we're going to have adversity this year. Something bad is going to happen, whether it be a fumble. Parkway West is going to score a touchdown on Friday night, right? That's going to happen. How do we respond? You know, I know how our team's going to respond when we win, when we score touchdowns. You know, the test, what I have to make sure my teams are prepared for, or our teams are prepared for, is what happens when things don't go our way. You know, how are we going to respond after they score? How are we going to respond after a fumble? You know, how are we going to respond if we don't score more points than them and the game's over, right? How are we going to respond for the next week? So those are things that you talk about. You make sure you're mentally prepared for, and that way, if they do come, you can respond accordingly. So that's just kind of, you know, if you've got any of that from, you know, if you felt that way from anything I've been saying lately or in my emails, you know, that's where those words are coming from. I guarantee you, our kids are ready to go out and compete and have no intention of scoring less points than Parkway West on Friday night, and they're excited and ready to go. And I look forward to getting out there with everybody.
Well, Coach, just judging from what we saw at the Blue and Gold game and you know, the initiatives going on behind the scenes to improve the facilities and make things bigger and better for the next class that comes in, it sounds to me that you have the support of the community. And again, there are some crazy stats you threw out last year that you haven't been behind in a game for a number of you know, games as well. So it's good to just keep that chip on their shoulder, even though they've had a lot of success here in the last few years.
No doubt. We love our Seckman parents. We love our Seckman community, and I can't wait to see everybody on Friday.
All right, Coach. Well, I know you're very busy. We're going to let you go, but of course, roll Jags, and we look forward to seeing the Jaguar Nation out at the Valley on Friday night.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.